Hey, good morning. Welcome back to Morning Live. A final look now at your sports news for today. Now, lovers of the sports of polo and those that enjoy everything else associated with the sport will converge on the home of polo in South Africa. The Inanda Club, where South Africa will be taking on India. To help us talk about this, we've roped in Nigel Peeling, who is the president of SA Polo Association, and representing the headline sponsor, we are joined by Thabi Macheka. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Basiwe. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely awesome. Now, Nigel, I want us to start and just talk about the sport of polo. I mean, it dates back almost 100 years now, particularly in terms of it being played in South Africa. Talk to us about the level of activity that we currently have in South Africa when it comes to polo, in terms of just the quality of players that we have and the facilities that we have available in the country.
Well, I'd say we rank about in the top 5 countries in the world now. We have one player who comes from Swartberg in what was formerly known as the East Griqualand area of southern Natal. He's made it to the very top. He played in the Argentine Open, which is the effective world championship, last year, and won the event, one of 4 players. So we've got a player now at the very top in the world of polo, and we're very proud of him. His name's Ignace Duplessis, if you'll hear more about him. And then polo, we're a well-known polo country. Polo was spread in the late 19th century by British Army officers practicing their horsemanship and keeping them war prepared, I would imagine, in those days. And it spread in South Africa for the same reasons. There are about 20 clubs in the country, spread all over the country, from the Cape to the North Coast and Natal. And it's a small sport, 450 members, playing members at the moment, but it's growing quickly, especially in children and ladies. Ladies has been the biggest increase in our game for years, and I imagine at the moment we've got well over 100 ladies playing the game of polo.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We call 2023 the Year of the Woman, so it's great to hear that women are getting more involved in polo. Now, Thabi, let's talk to you about, I mean, you're obviously representing the headline sponsor for the polo taking place this weekend. But for so long, we've seen polo as an elite sport. It's a sport for the rich and the wealthy, and not so much just the everyday person. But over the years, we've seen some sort of shift in that, in terms of the people that go to the polo, that watch that polo, that participate in the polo. Talk to us about that from a headline sponsor perspective, and how important that was for you, that it attracts different people from different backgrounds.
Very importantly, I think for us, is that from 2019, we launched the Nedbank International Polo as the new nobility. So taking that sport of kings and really making it accessible to more people, but also really urging them to use their influence to be able to really deliver much more impactful outcomes in people's lives. And hence the polo for Nedbank has become about how do we support our small businesses, how do we support some of the important affinity programs with our partners who can really give into things like the sports trusts, the arts and culture trust, for example, the children's trust that Nedbank works with.
Indeed. Now, Robbie, you touched earlier on about how the polo now, in addition to attracting women, is also attracting the youngsters. And I think we've seen the likes of Robbie Mukone, Talent Mumba. What are the actual costs that are involved when it comes to the polo? Because as I was saying now to Thabi, the image that we have generally as people is that it's just so expensive because it seems so elite.
Yeah, it's costly, but there's a lot of sponsorship within the sport between the players who partake. And, you know, we've got, for instance, quite a few black professional players now at Inanda. We've got some really up-and-coming players, one who was seriously considered of playing in this sport. And back 5 or 7 years ago, unfortunately, we had a really top player who was established within the South African team, and he unfortunately passed away, which set us back, you know, because he was a bit of a flag for us, you know, there. But there's a healthy amount of previously disadvantaged players now playing the sport. A lot of them in jobs, working for the owner of the horses, but playing with them in the game. So there is an entry into the sport from sponsorship, and there's a sort of sponsorship we get from Nedbank that's absolutely crucial to making that happen. And we have many trusts within the clubs, and Inanda's got a grooms and players, Black Players Trust Fund, the sport, South African Polo has the same in the Duncan Mackenzie Trust Fund, and we use that money to uplift and bring players into the sport. But certainly, you know, there's a lot more interest. And the Inanda Club itself, it's about 1,000 members, and over a quarter, nearly a third of those are black members. So they're taking an interest, and their children are taking lessons, and we're very hopeful for that progress.
So certainly, if there's a young child at home now of colour that wants to participate in sport, in the sport of polo, there are programs available for them without them having to almost fundraise these funds for themselves.
Yeah, they can partake in simple lessons at a polo school that exists at Inanda Club, and many do, and they can start small with one horse, and you know, or sharing horses or hiring horses off the professional. It's an expensive sport, sure, but you know, so is water skiing and auto racing, which involves having to purchase cars, and you know, it's in that level. It's not out of reach for ordinary people, but certainly it is one of the expensive sports.
And Tabi, we speak about the sport, and what I'm getting from the conversation we're having is that it is one that many would aspire to get into. So now, as a headline sponsor and a commercial partner of the polo, are there any other programs that you're involved in to help the young up-and-coming polo players? Because as we often say in South Africa, sports is such a catalyst for the change we want to see.
Yeah, so the event itself, obviously, the sport is big in it, but I think we use the lifestyle component to be able to attract people who will actually partner with us on that journey. So people who were there on Saturday, dressed in the bold with a touch of green, bold with a touch of green,
okay.
Are really going to be able to see some of the work that is done across different programs at Nedbank, even in sports, where we've got the likes of Smanga Matoleni, for example, who will be featured there and showcasing some of the work that they do in various areas across the country to really help young people into various forms of sport. So it's not always necessarily just polo, but really looking at how we use sport as a passion point in South Africa to truly make a difference in people's lives.
And I can see today you look bold with your touch of green there in your earrings. Finally, Nigel, as we wrap up, just in terms of the expectations in the game that we're going to be seeing this week in South Africa up against India.
They're a good side. They're one of the founding places of polo. You know, that part of Asia is where the old form of polo started up, and now, since the last 140 years, they've been playing organised official polo, and they're a good team at this level as well. You know, there's handicap levels in polo. At this level, they'll be really difficult to beat, and they're a very proud country. And there's a great sports rivalry between South Africa and India. You know, you remember back, who's going to forget the Indian team that came here in cricket, you know, in '94. There's a lot of anticipation. And they used South Africa to play a qualifier for the World Cup earlier in the year, and they played Pakistan here. And it was extremely exciting and gave us a bit of a shock to see the standard that they are. So I'm expecting a very close game. It's no one's favourite here. If anything, home advantage is the only difference.
Oh, we hope it certainly will work to our advantage. Thank you so much for coming through this morning, Nigel, as well as Ntavi.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so that's how we wrap up your sports news for today. Of course, we were joined by Nigel Peeling, who is the president of the South African Polo Association, as well as a representative from the headline sponsor, Ntabi Macheka.